She was lying on the ground, pills everywhere. I can still feel the crunch underneath my feet as I'm walking towards her. I just remember shaking her and intuitively knowing something was different, but it was kind of like she's asleep, she's not waking up. If I was better at this, I could have reached them differently. I could have done more. I could have sold the car to bring more people over. And for the longest time, I made it about me.
Yep.
I took it on as kind of guilt and shame and not good enough, as opposed to, God, please continue to cultivate me how you want, but knowing that even if I mess up, even if I can't help another person as long as I live, it's job well done. I didn't have purpose out of college. I actually became incredibly depressed. I was clinically depressed and then actually became suicidal.
What's up, fam? Welcome back. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel. I'm here with a new friend, but an amazing friend. Dude, we connected. It's so cool. We'll probably share some of the story. This is my man, Mark Manderson. He owns Pacific Shores Recovery up in Costa Mesa, right?
Newport Beach.
I knew I would get it wrong.
Same thing.
All blends together for me when you're in South County.
Yeah.
And I had somebody give me a hard time about it yesterday. But anyway, Mark, welcome.
We're so far north.
I know.
It's forever. Thank you for having me, man. This is awesome.
That's why you text me and you're like, hey, dude, it's going to be like 35 minutes. It seems like a drive because we're used to our bubble. So anyway, so grateful that you're here. So grateful. And I don't really know where it's going to go. I just wanted to have you on, one, because we were talking about it before, is like you're just a man of knowledge and you have a unique gift in the short time that we have known each other to be able to break down very complex ideas and complex things into like simple step-by-step frameworks. And I've seen you do it time and time again. You did it when I was on your podcast a couple weeks ago, which just came out this week. So go check it out. And yeah, dude, I just want to let's start with you just sharing your story of like, how'd you get here? Share a little bit about how we met, whatever. And then we'll kind of jump into the fun growth stuff.
Yeah, thank you, man. Born and raised in Newport Beach, so really, really lucky. Had no idea what I wanted to do. I was a terrible employee growing up, to give you an idea. So my parents were serial entrepreneurs, started gyms, different things, like seeing your daughter running around takes me back to my childhood.
Yep.
My parents started several gyms called Shape Makers. So I grew up from my earliest memories running around open gyms as they're doing all the construction, and just a different way of life. The babysitter was the iron, you know what I mean? And so just kind of going through school, not knowing what I wanted to do, was an athlete for the majority of my life. Never the best at anything, but always tried to learn and to grow. And outside of college, didn't know what I wanted to do, so I figured, well, let's travel. So ended up getting an opportunity to move overseas and went over to England, went out to Cambridge, did some schooling there, and then traveled all over and went, gosh, this is really cool.
Yep.
Ended up going back home, still didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I said, well, I love traveling, and no matter what you do, you're doing business. So there's this major back then, I don't even know if it's still a thing, but called international business. And so I'm like, oh, this is cool. So did semester at sea and was able to do some amazing experiences as a student. I was just talking with someone the other day. They're asking about some of the travel stories. I'm like, oh, well, all right, I'll name drop a little bit, but like I met Fidel Castro and partied at his compound, and they're like, wait, what? I'm like, it was 2000, it was through semester at sea, but just the opportunities that you get from traveling, because like you said, the bubble.
Yep.
Born and raised in the Orange County bubble.
Yep.
Like I had no idea. I recently had a friend that moved out to Tennessee and got like, I think 70 something acres of land. And I had to ask him, I go, what's an acre? I'm from Orange County. I don't know what that is.
We know by square feet.
Yeah. So it really helped open my eyes to there's a whole other world outside of what I knew.
Yeah.
And so I questioned everything of like, I was born and raised Christian, family started different church plants and different things like that, and always knew that I was Christian, but I had some people in my life that said, would you be Christian if you were born and raised in India and raised Hindu? And I'm kind of like, oh, I've never questioned my belief, my religion, my stories. And so as I started to, it just kind of took me on this wild journey of ups and downs and all arounds. And then eventually kind of stumbled my way into what I've been doing now. We just hit 25 years in the mental health and addiction realm of just wanting to help individuals and families heal from addictions and brain imbalances and all sorts of things. And one of the things that we kind of connected on was, oh man, when your brain's balanced, you tend to feel better. You make better decisions. When it's not, you make poor decisions. what if a lot of us are focused on the wrong thing? And if we just look at the brain and some of the things that we can do to change that, life gets so dang good.
Yep, for sure.
Kind of the Cliff Notes version.
So cool. You have so many cool stories that I would love to bring up, but I'll save them. But you do have a book called The Recovery Way.
I do.
Right? How long ago was that released?
I think 2022.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a few years.
So, and in it, you have a protocol or kind of like a framework, right? For a step-by-step. Do you mind sharing that for people? Because I think that gets into a little bit of like, everybody thinks about the brain and they think it has to be complex and it has to be difficult. And it's something I'm passionate about where I let people know, like, listen, most of your struggles just come down to stress and how your body is processing or dealing with stress. And so that's what we work with people on. But for you guys, you have a little bit of a different process. We're coming at it from a couple different angles. But I love your approach and your step-by-step. So can you just kind of walk people who are listening who may not have heard of it or read your book before of like, what's that process, if you don't mind laying that out for us?
So, one of the things was, so none of this is like my work. It's so funny when people are like, oh, I created this. I'm like, I don't think we have original anything anymore because human beings have been around so often. It's just trying to find things and put it in a palatable way that we can actually break down and then apply.
Yep.
So I remember for a long time it was like, oh, it's education. It's not an education issue anymore. You can find the information anywhere. It's application and execution. And so maybe about 12 to 15 years ago, like we'd have people come through our center, have the same therapists, the same case managers, interact with the same staff, be in the same groups. And then a year later, we'd follow up and we'd see one person completely change their life, flourishing, the white picket fence, the family, the dog, the 2.5 children, which I don't know how you get 0.5.
Yeah.
And so I'd see this and it was wonderful. And then I'd follow up with another person that came through with the exact same everything, and then they're struggling and still living the exact same way. And so what I started to do is just look for patterns. And after I don't know how many thousands of people coming through the program and looking, we finally figured it out and said, these people over here are doing a certain set of daily disciplines, daily habits, rituals, whatever you want to call it. And these either are doing maybe in one area but struggling in other areas, or neglecting all 5 of them.
Yeah.
And so I call them the 5 foundational freedoms, and it's in no particular order. I just have it memorized this way. So first thing we started seeing is those flourishing were doing something in fitness and health every single day.
Yep.
So they were moving their body. Well, the science is when you start sweating and moving, releases different chemicals, dopamine, serotonin. You start feel better. When you feel better, you make better decisions. So there's the science back behind it, but we just noticed. And why I love framework, it wasn't like, oh, CrossFit or die, or yoga only, or different things. It was whatever season of life you're in, as long as you are moving your body, you're doing something, you're getting the scientific part of the brain, but also you feel good. So I get lost in the science and the studies. I just say, what is the outcome? Like, how do I feel when I do this? Well, you feel better. I'm in.
Yep.
So that was the fitness part. The next part was the faith. The people that were over here had some form of maybe less selfish, so thought of them selfless. They would commune with their creators, what I call it, where the people that were struggling, they were the center of their universe. It was me all the time, which I know that gets me in trouble sometimes too. And so we started looking at that and thinking, wow, with these people, when they actually sit in either prayer or meditation, basically it's stillness. Again, science-backed for the brain, but in stillness mixed with this fitness part, they started doing better. And then that led to a third pattern that we saw, and that's the third F, which is family and friends. They were investing and cultivating relationships. So in the addiction realm, they say addiction's isolation. So what I've learned to do is you just do the exact opposite. So if addiction's isolation, that means recovery's community.
Yep.
So if we're investing in relationships and started seeing this and just little one-way transactions, we call them MOGs, messages of gratitude. And so it's just letting people that you love, what you appreciate about them, maybe memories from the past, things that you're looking forward to coming up, but it's building this bond with those that you love.
Before you go on, I got to ask, have you seen the studies where they take the rats and they put them in like, they give them the choice between drugs, and then have you seen these? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so like this, it just highlights it so perfectly. You're like literally, you see the exact same thing with us. It's so cool.
Yeah. Well, and just in case someone doesn't know it, what they do is they take rats and either lace the water with either cocaine or heroin. They found it didn't really matter what drug.
Yep.
And when they put them alone, they would continue to use so much until they'd actually die.
Yep.
And then someone finally said, what if we put them in a community where they had all the toys and they had wheels and different things, and we still had the water infused with heroin or cocaine? And what they found is every once in a while, a rat would come over, but over time they'd start completely removing themselves from the drugs and just communing together and having fun and making rat babies and all the crazy stuff that comes with Ratopia.
So cool, dude. It's it's amazing. I mean, that's the power of relationships.
Power of relationships, but also the downside is, we're not much different than rats. That's very interesting. So yeah, it's investing, and that was one thing that was really difficult. Is for a while I thought, well, they have to do it back to me for me to get the benefit. Yeah. We found actually no. Like some relationships, they would continue to start building the trust again, and the other person, unfortunately, had been so hurt. And whether they were or weren't doing the work, I would err on the side of they probably weren't doing the work. So they said, I don't care, we're done. And the person still continued to thrive.
Yeah. Wow.
And so the fourth is finances. We got to make money. Mm-hmm. The barter system's long gone. And so we found that people were investing in themselves. They were actually doing what they love. In this day and age with YouTube and now ChatGPT, like we were talking about before, they are able to learn a trade that actually they love. And a lot of times purpose and passion starts playing a part of that. And so they continue to grow, and they're able to provide more value, create more beauty in this world, and charge for it. And so we had those four for a while, but we seem to be missing something. And so as we continue to look, that fifth foundation that all four sit on top of, so think of like a triangle, the strongest part is that base, it was feelings. Those that were flourishing and going on were spending their days, well, not the whole day, but spending time each day of investing into their emotional state, actually processing emotions differently instead of carrying the guilt, the shame of releasing that, and then doing the work around it, asking. One of the great questions is what I'm feeling, is this true? And what we find is feelings aren't fact, it's merely data, it's feedback.
Yep.
And then as we learn to process, we no longer take the weight of those emotions, and then you put the other four foundations together, it's just this beautiful expansive part that the more you do, it gets bigger and bigger, and as you get more emotionally mature, you feel better and better.
So good. You guys hear that? Same, like literally the exact. This is what I talk about. So many of my clients, and I can't remember how much we talked about this on the podcast when I was on your show, but like one of the things I continually see is that when people don't acknowledge their emotional state that they're probably unaware of, like that will cause their physical pain. And each body part is associated. So like low back is associated with support. Shoulders are associated with lack of joy. Neck is associated with lack of the ability to be flexible towards ideas or situations or people, and the list could go on and on. But it's so interesting that like two completely different worlds in a way, but the exact same principles hold true, which I think is so special. And there's something else I thought was cool, which we talk about a lot with people that we work with. You mentioned under the finances about passion and purpose. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to know, so like with the people you work with, do you guys have like specific strategies or specific things in place where you can help people kind of find that passion and purpose? Because that's a question that I get a lot, where I had a student that I used to teach 15 years ago, and she reached out and she's like, I've been through all these jobs. She's like, I'm in the tech industry. I make good money. I'm not happy. Do you have any suggestions? And I'm like, well, you need to find what you're passionate about. And I think that's where everybody kind of struggles. And I can remember my dad always telling me, like, you're just lucky that you found chiropractic. Like, it was just luck, which I don't agree with that necessarily. But I'm curious from your perspective, like, what kind of strategies you guys have to help people find that all-out passion purpose? So
I love that you asked this, because one of the parts that I tend to or not even brush over, but forgot to mention was I didn't have purpose out of college. I actually became incredibly depressed. I was clinically depressed, and then actually became suicidal. And so with lack of purpose, there's a lot of internal pain.
Yep.
And so it's interesting because I had this belief of like, you're given one shot. I'm not going to quote Eminem, but you know the song. But it's like, okay, so my biggest fear is, what if I choose the wrong purpose? Mm-hmm. And so by having that fear, I didn't choose something to do because I was terrified, the golden handcuffs. What if I choose the wrong purpose? I get all this way, and then it's like, well, what do I do?
Yep.
And so that actually created a lot of pain. And something that I started to discover was, I call it seasonality of purpose. I thought purpose, you got one purpose your whole life. That kept me literally self-imprisoned. And once I started to understand there's seasons of purpose, just because one person, like we work a lot with military, their purpose, they were an asset for the government. And for a lot of them, it was the most crazy, fun, fulfilling times of their life. And that was their purpose.
Yeah.
Well, there is a expiration date for veterans of how long they can be used before they come to the civilians. And one of the biggest things that we see, especially, the suicide rate is crazy with veterans, is we see the question is, well, what is my purpose? Well, if you look at, you only got one purpose. It's like, well, you already served it. But when we understand it's a season, so now what does that look like? So I wish there was a magical formula like, well, if you put X and Y, you do this. But here's the metaphor I use. A lot of the time, so like in this building, if I were to park behind, I didn't see where you guys were.
Yeah.
But if I say, well, there's something on the corner, let me go check that out. As I start to go to pursue, we'll call it the purpose, I look and say, well, I achieved this purpose. This is wonderful. There's a whole other side to this. And there's actually something else over here that looks pretty gratifying. I could try this for a while. And then as you start walking that way, you find your new purpose. Now all of a sudden there's another corner. And when you come on the south side, it goes, this was the purpose that maybe I ride into the sunset with. Maybe it's 10, 20, 30 years. Like I'm in a 25-year purpose. Don't know if it's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. If you were to ask me today, betting-wise, well, yeah, I love it. I wake up Mondays so freaking pumped. But I don't know. And being open to that, understanding that, well, it's seasonal, it removes all that self-inflicted pressure of you better find it or else. So like that person in tech, well, what do I do? Well, they're creating so much of this I'll call it self-imposed trauma eternally.
Absolutely.
They don't know. And so we tell ourselves like there's something wrong with me because I'm not doing this and create the pain, as opposed to.
And that gets the feelings, right?
Yeah. Well, what do I enjoy? This. Well, give it a shot. It could be a purpose for a season of literally a season, 3 months, or it could be a couple of years. And as you get more skills, a lot of the times these skills open up another door that you go, this is why I got put on earth. This is why God made me. I am all in on this.
Yeah, that's so cool. It reminds me, I think Gary Vee is the one who told this story, because one of the conversation that I had with my student who reached out, I had a conversation with her on Sunday. But her thing, she's like, well, I can't make money doing, like, I can't just switch because I got to make money. Mm-hmm. But the story that she had in her head was like, it's impossible to be profitable and going to do XYZ, whatever it is she wanted to do. But you talked about the stories that we tell ourselves and the feelings that we have. And I'm like, is that true? And I think Gary Vee used the example. He's like the one dude who had the Instagram page that was so passionate about Black Panther. Like nobody knew what that comic was, but then Marvel came in and they're like, hey, you have this audience that like nobody else really ever cared about except for this like niche group of people. Can we pay you to market our movie to them? And then this is like what helped it blow up. And then that guy became a millionaire. And he's like, just because he was passionate about the thing, that he didn't care if he was going to make money or not, and it ended up being super lucrative for him. I think it's so interesting how those things work out, as long as it's like, this is just what I'm excited about, and I'm going to just pursue it no matter what.
Well, you brought up a good point, too. I run a small business group, and this actually came up yesterday on our call, was because this day and age, everyone's like, oh, burn all the boats.
Yep.
It's like, well, what if your family's on the boat?
Yeah.
When you're young, okay, burn the boats. But as you get older, it's kind of like, oh, that's right. And so we have this mindset of all or nothing, black and white, as opposed to, this is something I enjoy. I can work on this outside of normal business hours. So if I'm working here 9 to 5, I got 5 to 9, something else. Now, if I've got family, well, maybe 9 to 11.
Yep.
But it's one of those things of, as you start doing this, if it is your purpose and passion, you do it not for the outcome of the payment, but because you love it. If you can get one person to pay you for your service, you continue to build that. Yeah. Then you can make the decision once you're making an income. Do I want to keep doing what I'm doing to continue paying the bills, or do I enjoy this so much? If I'm giving 20% over here, I have enough now that the family's taken care of. We don't have to burn the boats.
Yeah.
So yeah, my biggest thing is like, question all these cliches, because a lot of time there's truth to them, but if you question them, we were talking about beliefs and stories. I just cut out all the letters, squish it together, BS.
Yep.
It's what we believe. And so if I challenge beliefs and stories, does this serve me? If it does, you go forward. If it doesn't, you start doing the work.
So good. So good. So from, dude, you have a cool past. So like we got to sit down and have lunch before a couple times now. And there's so much that I feel like you've experienced in life in a good way. I'm curious to know, because there are quite a few.
In a bad way.
Well, yeah, but it's all it's all learning and growth, right? So And we were talking about this before we got on as you were mentioning growth. So I'm curious to know, like, from your perspective, with all your world travels, with all the cool stuff you've done, like the sponsor surfer story, I always think of that as it just makes me laugh. I'm not asking you share it if you don't want to, but I'm more curious to know, like, what's because there are quite a few entrepreneurs and like Chiros who are kind of trying to take off and like figure out their thing in business for this channel specifically. But what's like your biggest business life lesson that you've learned? Because, dude, you have a ton of experience.
Yeah, I was gonna say only one life lesson.
I mean, you could share as many as you want, but I would love to just pick your brain more selfishly for me than probably anything to know, like, here are my biggest lessons or things that I've taken away. You kind of mentioned it a second ago, is like, I remember being in church and we were worshiping. And God's like, what if you just stop listening to Hermosi and like stop listening to Taylor and some of these other guys? And he's like, and you just read the Bible and like took those principles from the Bible and then applied them to your business. He's like, because it all comes from the same place. Yeah. So, I think the way you said it just kind of reminded me of that moment that I had. And I'm not saying they're wrong. Like these guys are super intelligent. And so I'm curious from your perspective though, like what are those big lessons, big takeaways that you've had?
So the two that come to mind first was I had to debunk, because a lot of people, like all the stories that I heard and what I saw is the kids slinging the candy in junior high and high school, flipping comic books. My brain doesn't work that way. I was never that. Yeah. So for the longest time, it was, you'll always be an employee. Well, I sucked at being an employee. I just thought I was lazy. I was told that by a lot of people, and the internal voice as well. So the first thing is that entrepreneurs or business individuals aren't necessarily born. Here was my leveling system. Everybody was born with the same amount of knowledge coming into this world. Yep. Nobody was born of like, I know how to do business. Yeah. They were born with zero, and then they learn through trial, error, questions. And nowadays, having access to YouTube, like you were saying, Hermosi, Taylor, all these different people, it's like, oh my gosh, I can shorten my learning curve. Yep. But I got stuck in the reading phase for so long of, well, I need to read it and get it all perfect before going. Yeah. So once I debunked you're born, not bred, and just said, well, I'm going to figure it out. I just want to serve people. Again, having it be more journey focused as opposed to outcome focused. So that was the first thing. And then really I don't want to make it too simple, but bringing everything in business down, there's 3 problems to solve: leads, sales, and systems. Mm-hmm. Once I was able to look at that and say, I'm trying to solve all these huge complex things. Well, starting out, basically it's leads. How do I get people to pay me for service, product, whatever it is? You start with one, they don't buy, find out why. You keep going, law of numbers. And so as you start learning how to do leads, then it's the sales. Well, I got a lot of leads, but I'm not able to let anybody know, like, you don't know you need this. Yeah. How do I describe knowing that you need this? And so once you figure that out, then it's systems. It starts with one person. And so what I see a lot of people do, and why I created the business group, is we'd see people get really good at leads, but then not be able to deliver. Yep. And so they go, oh crap. So they run over here and they work on delivery on lacking the systems, and then the leads dry up. And so they run back and forth. And so that's why, by understanding these 3 systems, you can implement into the lead process, to the sales process, to the delivery process.
So good. What's the other one?
Well, the first one was debunking.
Oh, just debunking
that
it all.
thought process.
Gotcha.
Like my negative self-talk, I'm assuming I'm normal.
For sure.
Everybody has it, but I'm like, it just kept telling me of like, your parents are the entrepreneurs. You're not. You're always going to be an employee. And so I remember fighting it for a while, trying to start things. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a good starter, but what I'm good at is going in and finding out, here's what it is. Here's how to make it grow. And it's all through questions. So even in school, I think I shared this with you before, was for some reason I was never afraid to ask the dumb questions because I didn't understand it. Yep. And so I remember even in college, sitting front row, I'd ask questions, and you literally heard behind, oh my gosh, this guy. And I'd ask the question and get an answer. I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. Well, every once in a while, at least 1 or 2 people would come up, hey man, thanks for asking that. I was too scared, but I had the same question. Kind of like, oh, so if I don't care if I look like a dummy or not, well then let's do it. And so just by asking those questions, I started getting a real concrete understanding of what that looked like. And then so that's where, by building systems, trial and error, asking questions, and then putting it together, I've been able to grow and scale. So good. I think that's one of the gifts that you have too. And you mentioned this when we were at lunch. You were like, I had to ask the questions. You were like, because you said it this way, is like, I wasn't smart enough. So that's how I could boil everything down to these like really simple things. But I think that's
that I can't remember who said it. I think Einstein is like, if you can't explain it simply, then you don't truly understand it anyway. So this just like commitment and level of what it took for you to like boil things down to very, very simple principles is like a gift that you have.
Well, it was painful because I remember I would go to the open office hours in the morning because a lot of teachers had like half hour in the morning, they would teach, and then they'd have it in the afternoon. So I would go to the open office hours before, try to figure out this stuff, go to class, ask the questions, then go again after. So I fought it for a while, and then finally I just said, well, if it takes me 3 hours to do something that takes other people 30 minutes or an hour, what if I just change the criteria instead of wishing I was that way, accepted that I'm this way? And so painful figuring that out, but once I did, I'm like, oh, I just got to invest maybe 2 to 3 times more in other people to figure it out. But then once I lock it in, it's like, all right, okay, game over. Here's the framework. And then, people are like, hey, I'll pay you for that framework. Like, okay, here you go.
So
this
good.
is really cool.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's so amazing. I want to back up because I'm curious. I don't think you like fully explained this to me. I want to know how you got into like addiction, rehab, recovery, mental health.
Okay. So I didn't know this at the time, but I got to share this because it's a huge part. So there was a part of my life that like I blanked, and it was around 8 years old. So I remember, my parents got divorced at 6, so I remembered that, some of the ups and downs, but like I blanked this part out, and it took a while, but eventually as I started doing some of this work, it turns out I was the one. So my aunt was in and out of rehabs. My aunt had a drug problem, and she was the outspoken, like she was a kid at heart. Like all of us kids absolutely loved her. And so she got kicked out of a rehab and actually ended up staying with us. And I had bunk beds in my room. So I remember Aunt Steffi was getting to stay with me in my room. Like I felt like the coolest kid. And so I still can't remember if it was winter or summer, but I remember coming home and she was lying on the ground, pills everywhere. I'm sure it's a distorted memory. Like in my memory, it was thousands of pills. Like I can still feel the crunch underneath my feet as I'm walking towards her. I just remember shaking her and intuitively knowing something was different, but it was kind of like she's asleep. She's not waking up. So I think my mom was in the backyard. I go and grab my mom. She comes in. Fortune revives her. But when she comes to, talks with her, makes sure she's okay, but then says, I can't have you stay with us any longer. Like we had one rule, and you told me it wasn't you, it was the boyfriend, all the typical excuses. And so she ended up leaving, and about, I think it was a few months later, she died one town over of an overdose. Same thing, but no one was there to find her. So at a young age, it planted, thankfully, of don't try drugs, don't touch any of this stuff because it robbed you of your family. So I think I kind of got this false sense of kind of like I'm untouchable because I'm not doing drugs. And I found other ways that were so damaging of stuffing the pain. I became a stuffer. I'm not an exploder. I'm an imploder. I stuff and stuff. And then, unfortunately, it's never on a random stranger that you'll never see again. It's around people that you care most about. And you say just some of the most hurtful things. And so it started coming out of, well, you had this really traumatic memory of what you experienced and seeing technically what was a dead person that you cared about. And I thought, oh, I never thought about that. So there's this, I guess, deeply planted seed of it's 100% avoidable. Had we known what to do, had we known how to love her and meet her where she is, no judgment, or on the other side of, oh, it was her boyfriend, so she's totally okay, and sit in and have some of those uncomfortable conversations that a lot of people don't know how to have because they walk on eggshells. That's one of the big parts in early addiction. It just kind of sat with me. And so my dad, when I was overseas at Cambridge, started just a simple, what was going to be a battered women and children's shelter, turned into helping people in sober living. And so that's a whole other story for another time of how that happened. So I came back and my dad would ask, do you want to come help out? And I'm like, I don't want to ever be around like those people. Like, and I had some of these memories. I'm like, I didn't know, like, heck no. And our band had just gotten signed. We got a record deal. We were playing House of Blues. We were opening up for some of the bigger name bands, and just like, I was gonna be a rock star. Like, come on, I want to be a rock star. Just life started falling apart in so many different areas, and one thing led to another. And I remember I had a job. I almost doubled the business in less than a year understanding how to do takeoffs. It was construction for commercial construction. And so I was able to help teach the guys systems and do stuff just from what I learned in school and reading and just being fascinated. And so I had a great job, like working 3 or 4 hours a day, working out, gigging, doing different things. And I remember my dad one time, he never said this. He goes, well, why don't you pray about it? I'm like, okay, Dad.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to pray about it.
Yeah.
I remember going home that night, prayed about it, and I don't know how to explain it other than like this fire in my solar plex, just like lit on fire. And I remember thinking, I'm like, I think I need to try this.
Wow.
So I remember going to my boss, Kyung. He was an amazing man. And I told him the story. And he's like, we'll pay you more. I'm like, you already pay me really well. He's like, we'll cut your hours. I'm like, I'm already not working. Like, it's nothing to do. I feel like high school. It's not you, it's me.
Yep.
I just said, I don't know how to explain it. I'm feeling this in my chest. I got to go try it. And he said, we will keep a spot open for you. And I remember when I went ahead and started doing it for the first couple of years, it was so difficult because I had zero knowledge. But again, I wasn't afraid to ask questions. So I would just go in and ask some of the clients that lived there questions. How come you did this? Why did you do this? Well, how come you're lying about this? No judgment. I just want to better understand. What can we do to help more? And so we kind of reverse engineered into what we've been doing now for so long of medical detox, inpatient residential, day treatment, outpatient. We have a virtual program that people go to. We've got a family program that we launched several years ago, ended up writing the book. I created an app that retrains, rewires the brain for the mental health aspect. Just like all these things from asking questions of, help me better understand how I can help.
So cool. Just the willingness to ask questions. All right, so you're sharing all this story with me, and it is the second time I've heard it. But there are some pieces of it that just give me more clarity. So my question for you, this is going to be probably a hard question. So like pause as long as you need to.
Okay.
But
Let me get ready.
I'm so interested because it keeps coming up in my life, and I don't think with God there are ever coincidences. And it's a great transition to like more of the spiritual piece. When you talk about all this, do you know, or have you ever considered like, this is my God-given identity? And like, do you know what that is? Or could you define it if I ask you that question? It's like, what do you feel like your identity that God gave you that will always be the same? Not same as purpose, because purpose, you can go anywhere, kind of do anything, but like God-given identity. Do you know what it is when I ask you that question?
Yeah, this is a great question, because had you asked me this even just 3 or 4 years ago, I would have answered, yes, it's going out and helping people.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's changed. So I have a morning routine, and this is something that, so by studying so many different business people and trying to figure out like what makes them so stinking good, it's daily disciplines, it's habits.
Yep.
And then it's the consistency. So I say, it's not a word, but discipliency creates consistency. And so the way I do that is I have literally a born through fire morning routine that, as I started doing, it started to open up everything. And faith, obviously, is one of those 5 foundations.
Yep.
I put together a Google document. Do you mind if I share that for your people?
No, dude, please.
So you can follow me at Pacific Shores Recovery and just DM me routine. And I go in depth. I got videos and different things on there because so many people ask, like, how do you go from where you were to where you are, and then where you are to where you want to go?
Yep.
And it's the small daily actions that most people discount. So the reason why I say that is because I've spent more and more time in faith. To give you an idea, I think 3 or 4 years ago, I was born in the Bible, like churches, all this stuff, and I still didn't understand. Like, I'd read the Bible, I'm like, when did they add this to the Bible? Like, pull it off the shelf. I'm like, who keeps coming and adding things to the Bible? Just different seasons, right? Yeah. And so I thought, I felt it in my heart of God saying, I want you to better understand this. So I actually took an online seminary course for a couple of years ago, because I wanted to better understand.
Yeah.
And then it was, okay, I need you to become ordained. I'm like, I'm not a pastor. I don't want to open a church. No, trust me. I go, okay. So I become ordained, become a minister. And then we started doing baptisms at our center. And I was the one that started doing that. So we were averaging about 3 to 5 a month for several years. Yeah. Every single month. It was a month-long process. And then we had someone who was way better than me who we partnered up with, and now we do it off-site. But just by listening to that voice. So the direct answer to your question, my God-given identity, and this was the part that was so difficult because I thought I had to continue to create and add value and do all this stuff. And now it's to just be me and just continue to seek him. So whether Pacific Shores goes away or I get called somewhere else, still living within my God-given identity. And it is so freeing of just going, God, I'm in the way again. Help me remove me from this equation. How do you want me to show up today? And there's just so much freedom in living that way.
Dude, mic drop. It's amazing. Thank you so much. Wow. That's powerful.
Well, this day and age, especially, and it's like, I love the business stuff. Don't get me wrong. You know me, I'm a book a week, a course a month.
Yep.
Like I will do that, I think, until I die. But so much of it is how much can you produce production wise, all these things, which is great. But that became who I was. Like I remember if a client left against medical advice, or we've had clients that we follow up with years later, they stop doing the work and they die of an overdose. And I would personally take that on. Like, have you ever seen Schindler's List?
Yep.
So I remember watching that movie at the end.
Yeah.
When he pulls up and the main guy comes out and they pulled all the gold caps from the teeth, melted it down and gave it to him.
Yep.
And I just remember him, he's sitting there, this still hits so emotional. He goes, I could have done more. I could have sold the car to bring more people over. And for the longest time, like, I made it about me.
Yep.
And like, man, if I was better at this, I could have reached them differently. And there's some partial truth there, but I took it on as kind of guilt and shame and not good enough, as opposed to understanding. And this is the big part of faith and going, God, please continue to cultivate me how you want, but knowing that even if I mess up, even if I can't help another person as long as I live, it's job well done. I want you to know I support you and continue to push you to grow, but not because I need you to, because you want to. And again, it keeps coming back to freedom.
Yep.
Being free from all these stories and beliefs of I am what I do, and if that goes away, who am I?
Yeah. And the metrics and all the stuff. I had a conversation with a doc this morning, who, not like necessarily in a great place. I know him pretty well, but he's kind of struggling, and I'm chatting with him. I'm like, he's telling me about all the struggles, and I'm like, dude, what's God say? And he's like, I don't know. I never ask him. And I'm like, I guarantee you that no matter what, like, talk to him. But I guarantee you one of the things he's going to tell you is that he's proud of you. And he's never left you. And he's just, like, you just make it more about yourself than it actually needs to be. So that's special, dude.
Yeah, being able to sit in the pit of pain, not necessarily needing to jump out or to stuff or sedate.
Yeah.
And that tends to be, I don't know why we're created this way, but typically on the other side of pain, when we allow to feel and process, is the peace and purpose that we've been looking for.
Well, I think that's why, so, not to make it like a whole chiropractic conversation, but why I get passionate about the people we work with is because most people, like, everybody's raised in this society where they say, if you have pain, we need to fix it because it's wrong and it's something that's broken.
Or take this.
Yeah, but that's the same thing. They're like, take this, it'll make it go away.
Yeah.
But the problem with that thought process then is, like, I always go back to, well, God had to give us a pain signal. Like, he didn't make a mistake and like, oh, I forgot. I just messed that up. I couldn't believe I overlooked that. So, like, the pain signal is there for a reason. And if you think about like, if you broke your ankle, it's great that you have pain because it's going to make you stop so that you can let it recover and heal. And so when pain shows up, most of the time, like you talked about in the beginning, is like 95% of all of it is just emotional, trapped in the system somewhere. And when we can identify those and we can allow people to become aware, then they don't have, I'm like, you don't need to go out and change your whole life. You don't need to eliminate all the stresses from your life. It's just, instead of telling yourself the story because you've been fed this, I would say, lie that like, oh, you're broken and there's something wrong when you have pain. It's actually an invitation, I would argue, from our Creator to be like, hey, maybe we just need to stop and pay attention more so that he can work through us, because the pain's only there to get us to stop. So as soon as we acknowledge or we can become aware, then it can complete. And I see that all the time. I text a guy today, a really good client of mine. I'm like, hey, I know you've been having jaw pain for like 3 weeks, but dude, just consider that jaw pain is highly associated with resentment. Does that ring true for you at all? And the response was back in the text message is like, hard to tell, but I've been overly stressed for the last couple weeks. Well, I asked him yesterday in person. He's like, I'm not that much more stressed than normal, but he like could immediately acknowledge when I throw that word resentment in there. He's like, hard to tell, but yeah, I think you're onto something. And I guarantee his jaw pain will go away because now he's like with it instead of feeling like there's something wrong with me. I'm broken. And I love that you said earlier, you're like, none of us are alone in that. Like literally none of us. We all have pains. We all have frustration. We all have resentment, and we're doing the best we can to just pull ourselves out of it. So
it's part of the human experience. One of the metaphors we share with our clients that are early on is so all these different emotions, it's just like when you're driving and a dashboard light comes on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they go, oh, the car's broken, get rid of this damn thing. And now they're barefoot on a freeway as opposed to, why don't I pull out the manual and see what this means? Oh, it means tire pressure low.
Yeah.
Okay, I can still drive with that, or let me pull over, fill up the tire, and all that, the feedback goes away. And so by understanding that, because when we feel it, it feels so heavy.
Yeah.
So one of the first things that we introduce clients to is becoming an observer. So once the dashboard lights up, is just observing the feelings. And so it's something as simple as we take them through an exercise of, okay, I'm sitting here, I'm feeling angry, or like your guy, I'm feeling resentful. Okay, we have them physically stand up, look down, and then ask, what are you resentful over? And what it does is just this one form of disassociation allows us not to feel the guilt and the shame and the heaviness, but to still be able to identify. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm able to diagnose, I'm resentful because of this, I don't like it, it's showing up in this and this. Then we can go and sit back down and go, I feel so much lighter recognizing these aren't my emotions that have to dictate what I do. It's just simple feedback to give me some more data to decide what do I want to do. So good. So good. All right, we're going to transition. I have at least maybe the last question. I may ask you one more after.
Yeah,
we can keep going if you got the time.
My one question for you that I got to know, kind of a left field question, but like, is there anything that you believe that most people would probably not agree with you about?
Oh, sure. A lot of stuff. The first one that comes up is, and this is somewhat newer in my own work myself, but that almost all pain is self-inflicted. I did not know that. I was one of the best victims I had ever met. And I had justifications and excuses and proof of how nothing was my fault. It was everybody else's. And every time I would argue with reality, I was the one that felt pain. Even the people who I blamed, they're like, yeah, I didn't even know that happened. All right, have a good one. And left. I'm like, wait, take my pain. It's your fault.
Yeah.
Like, no, bro, you're good. You keep that pain. And it was so freeing. And so once I understood, well, if almost all of my pain is self-inflicted, that means I can actually do the work to start to work through, and then going from this constant state of pain to now this freedom, this emotional liberation. It's a beautiful thing once I own it all, because once I own something, I can then make the decision to change it.
Why do you think that is, that most people, like if we're self-inflicted, or most of it, probably all of it, to be honest with you, like why do you think that is?
I think because it keeps our narrative going and it keeps us safe.
Yeah.
I mean, if we look at back in the old days, like if I have to accept this pain for some reason, even at an unconscious level, it's fight or flight. It's like, I'm going to die. This pain is going to kill me.
Yep.
And so if I can blame other people, then I don't view myself as a failure. That means, well, I still am lovable, or I still am good enough, so the tribe isn't going to kick me out. And so when we understand that, of just the reptilian part of the brain that is still kind of sending all the sensors, it's like, okay, hold on, whoa. I always think of Pulp Fiction, where it's like, be cool, honey bunny. Like, she's crazy. Yeah. It's like, be cool, honey bunny. It's like, I've got literally like a weapon against my brain. I'm like, whoa, be cool. It's okay. We're blowing this out of proportion. And when I understand that, it allows me to take accountability, which is so difficult.
Yeah.
Take responsibility, own it, and then be able to change it. So it goes back to that part of, if it's my fault, I'm a failure. That means people won't accept me or love me. And then I don't know what to do with that. That starts questioning identity, all different things. So it's much easier to be like, I'm fine. It's your fault.
Yeah.
It's safe.
Yeah, dude, I did not know this, and I started doing some research into like why. Yeah, I was looking at it specifically from the perspective of like social media in general. But my question was like, how does comparison trigger stress response? Because we know that, but it's like exactly what you said. The comparison is a threat to our identity, and that triggers fight or flight. And then we know that that stress physiology wrecks literally everything. It increases the pain response. I go down the list. I don't need to for this conversation necessarily, but it's so interesting how a threat to identity. And then you talk about people who are like, in my world, they say, well, I'm not stressed. And I'm like, no, but you are. You just don't know that you are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm doing such a great job of living in survival.
Yep.
I'm still okay, as opposed to, well, what if we gave up survival and looked, well, what is the next step? What does that look like?
Yeah.
You mean I can actually thrive
Yep.
in this life and enjoy? And then one of the parts that I'm kind of challenging now is, before it was acceptance, now it's, how do I actually enjoy the painful moments? Like when I'm going through the pit, instead of trying to get out or just sit in it uncomfortably, of going, how do I learn to enjoy this? Because this is part of the process.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the next game changer, where I'm like, okay, if we could figure this out, where I can actually sit in the pit and still enjoy it, this is going to be a beautiful thing, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, I think it's a training process. Like, I was sharing a little bit of you, and this might be like more than, I don't know, who knows, Heather might be mad at me for it, but this morning, she made a comment to me about money specifically, and we were going back and forth a little bit before then, but she's like, I know what's going to push your button. And when she said it, I wanted to get like super pissed, but I was doing dishes and I was getting ready for Coco to be here with me. And one of the things, I'm like literally washing a dish, and as much as I wanted to be mad, she had already went upstairs, and it just came over me. I was like, God, thank you for showing me the place that this usually would have triggered me into like a complete downward spiral. And it literally had like no effect on me. So it was just this gratitude for the moment of like, almost like the enemy trying to like, let's use this thing and see if it will still trigger him the way it would have even 6 weeks ago. And I thought it was just such a cool moment of like, no, I'm not. And then like, it's been an epic day.
See, that's beautiful, because life has a beautiful way of showing us where we're not free.
Yeah.
And it'll continue to come up again and again until we recognize that lesson. Again, it's a protective mechanism. We want to blame the other person. Like what we were talking about before is, my wife is the same way. The parts of her that piss me off the most are the parts that initially attracted me to her.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, this is so attractive. Unless it's turned on me, stop. And it's like, wait a minute. They're both truth. How do I acknowledge both of these things? And so when I'm feeling it, it's a great reminder. It's a running joke, but I'm like, oh, honey, thank you for showing me where I'm not free, and I'm still tied to this dang story of why you should live the way I think you should at all times. Wow, okay, even just saying that out loud, thank you for the feedback. And then as we start getting triggered, we start doing the work, we become more free. And now it's like, how do I get triggered less in this life? Like now I'm looking for triggers because it means I'm not free here. I got more work to do. It's so crazy.
The conversation I had this morning is like, God, what are you trying to show me? And I think that it's easier for me on the outside, especially like coaching people and working with tons of clients. And when you get to that point of leadership, like for me, when somebody's like, here are the problems I have, or this is where they're complaining, I'm like, yeah, it's because God is calling you to work on that and like bring you higher. But we don't see it that way when we're like in the trenches of it. So it's cool because like you said, now I'm like, oh, thank you for that challenge in this area to see like, is that really broken off of him? Like he swears that it is, or are we going to have to go do like a whole deep dive on it again? You know?
Yeah.
Super cool. So last thing, if you could share one message with obviously people listening, but with the world, like this is my last thing that I would share with everybody, anywhere, preach it from the mountaintop, what would that be for you?
One thing to share.
Yeah.
Give me a minute on that one.
Just think of like, this is the most important thing that I could possibly leave people with.
Yeah, there's so many different ones, but the one that's popping up right now is learn how to love yourself and be okay in silence. And just like the biggest battle for me was not knowing who I was and trying to wear so many masks for other people. And I do think part of it just comes with age and normal maturation, but
for sure
is learning how to be okay being you and how to love that version of you.
Yep. Amen. It's amazing, bro. All right, so tell people where they can find you. I know you shared it earlier in the episode, but if they want to learn more about you, about Pacific Shores, give them all the resources.
Pacific Shores Mental Health and Addiction. Our IG handles at Pacific Shores Recovery. We have a website, pacificshoresrecovery.com. We've got a ton of resources on there. We've got master classes. I mean, basically just go there and snoop around.
Yeah.
If you got any questions.
Literally, their content is amazing. The stuff they put out is amazing. I can vouch for it. I follow you guys, so I just love everything. And I know we don't know each other that well yet, but it's just a beautiful thing. So, Mark, dude, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to come down, be on today. Let's do many, many more of them, man.
Appreciate you too, man. Thank you.
You're the best, bro. Thank
Ditto.
you. Cool. All right, fam. Peace.